you get over. With women, feelings are something you chew forever. While the spoken word can do much damage, inappropriate behaviors which occur in place of important discussions can mess up many lives. This program will focus discussion on the top 10 things men do to mess up their lives. 30 years of study have shown that the average man and the average woman have about the same level of intelligence, but men do account for a higher proportion of both genius and mentally deficient. So except for the exceptions, it ain't smarts that's the problem. There is something else going on for men and women which leads us to behave stupidly in spite of our smarts. Throwing my 2 cents into the nature versus nurture battle, I say that's exactly the problem. Nature versus nurture. There are clearly bimorphic anatomical and physiological differences between male and female. There's not much argument about that. The fight begins when we introduce bimorphic tendencies to behavior. Well, friends, we aren't plants and we aren't minerals, we're animals. And with that comes certain biological imperatives or pressures. The amazing aspect of humanity is that we can override biology with a mere decision to do so. For example, a man staying home as the primary child caretaker, or a man mating with one woman when sexual variety might mean something special to the gene pool. I have come to believe that societal pressures to conform exist, but not to create something which isn't there, rather to emphasize what is already built into the animal with respect to masculine and feminine. In the last analysis, the basis of this book is identical to 10 Stupid Things Women Do, namely that the stupid behaviors of men and women most likely derive from one or more of the following sources: failure to discipline biological urges, immaturity, lack of learned moral or value systems sacrificed for the thrill or gain of the moment, personal weakness, and in the words of listener Michael Watts, failure to admit how stupid I've been. Chapter 1. Stupid Chivalry. During Saturday morning services at my synagogue, an engaged couple in their early 30s came up to the bema, or the pulpit, to receive the rabbi's blessing the day before their wedding. It was a lovely and touching moment as they entered into a new level of relationship to each other and to the community. On such a joyous occasion, the congregation customarily responds with song, clapping, and the throwing of candies at the happy but embarrassed pair, representing the hope for sweetness in the couple's future. Well, somebody didn't buy Target-friendly candies because even the rabbi cringed with pain as those hard projectiles thrown with such enthusiasm pelted him. Without suggestion or request, seemingly by instinct, the prospective groom moved in front of his bride-to-be and shielded her body with his back taking the brunt of the hits. When the folks ran out of candy, he moved back to his place beside her and she kissed his cheek, probably just with joy, but probably also as a reward for his thoughtful chivalry. The rabbi joked good-naturedly about the incident and the man's chivalry, but I was deeply struck by the clarity of that moment. The male's protection of the female is an important part of the biological and psychological dynamic between men and women. Chivalry is the combination of qualities expected of a medieval knight, including courage, generosity, and courtesy. More gender roles specifically, it is the male's obligation to be considerate, courteous, and gallant toward the females, protecting her sensibilities, honor, and person. I'm convinced it is built into the male to be protective, to be chivalrous. What I worry about is the blind, stupid chivalry which is messing up your lives. According to Selden, a listener, such blind and stupid chivalry would be indicated by the following 3 situations. Number 1, when a woman wants you to give her a life, and you try to do it. Number 2, try to get a woman to change. Oof. Number 3, stay in a lousy relationship out of a sense of pity or obligation. There is one central idea you men seem to be blind to. You buy the idea that a woman's situation in life, shaggy dog story of terrible experiences, failures or problems are accidents of fate or bad luck or incredible circumstances out of her control. Meaning, of course, she could do nothing other than what she's done considering what's happened to her. I'll give you that traffic accidents, disease, childhood abuse, or adult assaults sadly happen. Yet instead of observing how she handles these realities to learn about her strength, personality, and character, you determine to step in and heroically take over that responsibility for her. Worse still, you assume that if she's in distress, there must be a dragon to slay. Dragons are monsters outside the person. You need to look to see, number one, how heavy a contributor and supporter she is to her own misery, and number two, how hard she works to survive and make things better. Of course, you won't pay attention to these issues if you're off and running after the dragon. And it's not as if you guys are totally blind to what's going on. One caller, Bob, 24 years old, told me he was engaged to a 24-year-old woman with 2 children from 2 men. She was married to neither one, and neither was involved with his child. I said, "Does it cost much to feed your white horse? You're the hero coming in to save the damsel from herself, much less the dragon." His answer was that he hadn't finished high school, so he didn't know much about knights, and that he had dated too much, and he had known her before all the pregnancies and had always been attracted to her. Basically, he had one idea. She's cute, I want her, and stayed with that, no matter what. Let's face it, guys, a pretty face and a great body seem to have the magic to dumb you down. You make assumptions about pretty women that ain't necessarily so. While the biological drive for men to pick attractive women with wide hips may have some relevance to suggesting superior health and fertility, projecting your genes into the future generations isn't the only consideration in human life. Mental health, personality, and character are more important to the quality of your life in your own generation. The fix-it mentality is part of the reason that you self-proclaimed nice guys fall into bottomless pits. First, the nice guy complaints, such as the one in this listener's letter. "I'm tired of being considerate and having it taken for granted. Therefore, I'm retiring from the Mr. Nice Guy Club." Seriously, it is a major disappointment that so few women appreciate the qualities of honor, respect, and genuine commitment. I am no saint, however, the last 5 or 6 years have convinced me which treatment women prefer. I've heard this pathetic whining quite often in my life as well as throughout the 20 years on air, and it's just garbage. The problem is you. Here's the real scoop on you nice guys. You use being nice as a substitute for being real. There is a tremendous difference between genuine thoughtfulness and acquiescence in the hope of being wanted or getting some sex. You give her no real feedback, and you make no real demands. You give up your masculinity to try to become her best girlfriend so that there is no threatening aspect to the relationship. Another way of trying to appease the gods? For these voluntarily self-demasculinized men, a woman is another mother replacement. And how do you act with your mother? Certainly not with any sexual tension or demands. The nice guy and even the white knight behavior is in part due to the lack of recognition of the important reality that women are actually important to your lives. The male animal part of you men drives you to connect with females for mating. The human man part of you needs to permit itself to admit to its dependency on a woman's acceptance and support without fearing the loss of the male animal part. And you just have to know and believe that there's more that is important about you to a woman than the function of a white knight. Chivalry, as I said before, is a good thing, maybe even a biologically inherent thing. Stupid chivalry is not only not a good thing, it's a black hole which seems so obvious to everyone around you when you're doing it, yet it's difficult to let go. Richard, 33 years old, called my program complaining that he always seems to end up with ladies needing to be fixed. I asked him about the good part of such a woman. After struggling against the question, he admitted, "I guess I'm in control because they depend on me." I asked Richard to describe himself. "I'm kind of a dreamer," he responded. "I'm not sure what you mean, Richard. Tell me this. Why do you imagine that a non-fixer-upper kind of woman might not be interested in you?" "Well," he said, "I'm not really financially secure. I'm a fun kind of guy, but maybe that could seem irresponsible, and there are things about life, risks and stuff, which scare me. Well, Richard, I said, I am impressed with both your honesty and insight. Could it be that a fixer-upper woman provides less of a chance of rejection for you, since she's worse off? I never looked at it that way before, but maybe, yeah. Richard's knighthood was predicated on his need to hide his weaknesses and inadequacies behind the apparent strength of his rescuing. Obviously, this is a recipe for no positive growth and change for him, much less for her. Now we can move to the intense issues of fear you men have about women. Fearful of women? No way! Yeah, guys, right. Women give you life, love, support, and nurturance. Your mother has seen you sleeping with your stuffed animals, nervous over some pimply adolescent girl, and trying to act like a man when she knew you just wanted to hide, cry, and be safe in her arms. Well, perhaps you never got that wonderful mothering. Perhaps you got it with too many unhealthy strings attached. Perhaps you're afraid that if you want to get that mothered feeling from a woman, your penis will fall off. Whatever it is, you've got fears which make you see a woman as dangerous. You can readily detect a guy who's afraid of and therefore doesn't trust women. Ed, 36, and Kelly, 27, called together. They're newlyweds, having met in December, married in June. Kelly's got 3 children from 3 different men, non-husbands, and no, Ed's not one of them. Kelly had been heavily into drugs with all 3 of these men. Ed called, hilariously enough, because he said, issues of trust keep coming up. It seems that she's never where she's supposed to be, doing what she's supposed to be doing with the folks she's supposed to be with. Wow, I'm sure you're all surprised at that. What's the dynamic here? Ed marries Slime because his love shall transform, and then wonders why he doesn't have Cinderella after the marriage ball? Actually, it seems that being real close to a healthy woman is threatening to him. The potential for criticism and rejection is just too great. Perhaps Ed imagines or remembers having a face that even his mother couldn't love, so he attempts to transform someone who couldn't possibly judge him into someone he can trust to be kind to him. Oops. When your image of woman is threatening, you will work around your fears to get needs for companionship and sex met by finding the least threatening woman possible, the damsel in distress. Problem is that distressed damsels aren't good companions, and sex without more going gets cold fast. Whatever your fears of and failures with women, they don't get fixed when your efforts go into fixer-upper women relationships. At least one fellow found that out. I think that the biggest mistake I made was to think that I could rescue my damsel in distress, he wrote. I did get her out of an unpleasant situation, but wish that I would have dated her for a few years while she worked out her problems with her family. I could have then been working on making myself feel more confident and important to others by becoming more educated, experienced, and mature. Then I'd be chosen because I was good and worthy of love, not just as an escape ladder for the damsel. As I've said, I believe it is built into the male to be protective. As you've seen in National Geographic specials, the males fight, sometimes to the death, to win the opportunity to mate. When you turn into the knight to slay her enemies, you hope to win the prize. However, human behavior in life is more complicated than that of lower animals. For you, it's more than the mating. It's your life. It's okay to be chivalrous. It's totally stupid to be blindly chivalrous and save some woman who is too immature, self-centered, fixated in her damage, or just plain mean to appreciate the opportunity afforded her. Here's the magic bullet. If she doesn't give, then she's a lousy damsel. The problem with you knights is that you either don't realize or admit to what you need and require from a woman in an intimate relationship. Winning her is not enough. Available sex and companionship is not enough. You need more. You guys have the same fantasies about romantic love that women have, just the flip side. Women dream of being princesses. You men get off on the idea of being the hero. Happily ever after only works between mature, healthy men and women, not between heroes and princesses, because they inevitably disappoint each other. From so many of my conversations with men, I have